Hi there, today I'm going to show you some of the most common grammar mistakes that I see in IELTS writing and show you how to overcome these problems. My name is Lara Ryan. I've been an IELTS examiner for both the writing and speaking components of the IELTS test. I've been a British Council IELTS teacher. I am the founder of Complete Test Success and I have been teaching IELTS since 2010. Okay, so the first thing I want to teach you about is the definite article. So that's the word the, and very often students use this incorrectly because they don't fully understand how it's used. So to overcome this obstacle, I tell my students that they have to imagine what the person they're speaking to knows. You only use the definite article when the person you're speaking to knows exactly which specific thing you're talking about. So for example, with these 3 pens, if I say, take the gold pen, you know exactly which one I'm talking about, so using the word the is correct in this situation. However, if I said to you, take the blue pen, this isn't correct because you don't know which blue pen I'm talking about. Of course, I'm not talking about this one, but maybe I'm talking about this one, and maybe I'm talking about this one. So in this context, you, the listener, you don't know which specific pen I'm talking about, so the word the is not appropriate here. However, I can make it more specific by adding extra information. So if I say, take the blue pen in the middle, now you know which specific thing I'm talking about. And once more, the definite article, the word the, is appropriate because you, the listener, know which one. And then we have this sentence, take a pen and put the pen behind your ear. So the first time I say a pen. So what does that mean? Well, basically, whichever one you want. I don't really mind which one, but take a pen, any of them. But in the second part of the sentence, I say put the pen behind your ear. So I'm referring to the one that you've already taken. So we'll see this happen quite often, where the first time we refer to something, it's not specific, but the second time we refer to it, it is specific. It's referring back to the one that I've already mentioned earlier. Okay, so that's a very basic understanding of how definite articles work, but you have to put yourself in the mind of the person you're speaking to, or if you're writing, in the mind of the reader, and you're thinking about, did they know which specific one you're talking about? Because very often you will know, but that doesn't matter. It's does the reader or does the listener know? And that's when we use a definite article. Relative pronouns are another mistake I see quite a lot, and people try to use relative pronouns to refer to something else which it doesn't refer to. Let me show you an example. So if we take this sentence, Bob has a brother who is 25 years old. Here the relative pronoun is who, and the who is referring to a brother because who is next to a brother. So wherever we put the word who, we are referring to the thing that is next to it, in this case, a brother. However, in this sentence, Bob has a brother and is 25 years old. So in this situation, is 25 years old refers to Bob. Because when we use the word and, this conjunction means we are still talking about the same topic of the previous clause. Bob was the topic of the previous clause. Bob has a brother. And when we use and, Bob is still the topic of is 25 years old. So that's the mistake that we see quite often in the IELTS test, where people use a relative pronoun like who to refer to the first thing where it should be referring to the thing next to the word who. Of course, if I wanted to use who to talk about Bob, it would need to be next to Bob. Bob, who is 30 years old, has a brother who is 25 years old. So here, who is 30 years old refers to Bob. Who is 25 years old refers to a brother. So in this way, we can see that the relative pronoun is referring to the thing next to it in each situation. So that's quite a common mistake that we see where people try to add these extra relative clauses and they're referring to the wrong thing. That causes confusion. That can affect your grammar score, and it can also affect your coherence and cohesion score. So you need to be careful with that. Another common mistake that we see is that people don't recognize that each clause of a sentence can only have one verb. Again, let me show you some examples. Okay, so there should be one verb per clause. So in this sentence, Bob has a brother who is 25 years old. This sentence has 2 clauses. The first one, Bob has a brother, and the second clause, who is 25 years old. So there should only be one verb in each clause. In the one underlined in red, the verb is has, and in the one underlined in green, the verb is. So in these situations, you will see there's only one verb in each clause. Let me show you another example. Bob has a brother and is 25 years old. So again, we have two clauses. The first one is Bob has a brother and the verb is has. The second one is 25 years old and the verb again is. So this might seem pretty basic, but if you can keep in your mind where the verb is in each clause you're writing, that will most likely mean that you're going to have much more accurate grammar, because what often happens is students start adding two verbs, they're not sure where the clauses are, and it kind of falls apart. So if you can at least maintain the knowledge of where is the verb in each clause you're writing, that will help you recognize when you need a new clause, rather than trying to continue the same one. Here's another example. The main clause here is the bit underlined in red. Bob has a brother, and the verb is has. Another one, who is 30 years old. Here the verb is, and the last clause in this sentence, who is 25 years old. Again, the verb is. So that's one sentence. It has three clauses, and each clause only has one verb. Okay, now of course sentence structures get a lot more complicated than this, but that's the basics, and I think if you can just get your head around that much, the rest of it falls into place a little bit more easily as you go from there. Okay, one more aspect of sentence structures that I want to look at, because it's something that I see students get wrong a lot, is how to use infinitives and gerunds. So infinitives and gerunds would be in a situation like this. In each independent clause, you have a subject, a verb, and an object. But if you need to use a verb inside the subject or inside the object, you must have an infinitive or a gerund. Now, let me just show you a basic sentence first. Bob has a brother. The subject is Bob, the verb is has, and the object is a brother. But in a situation like this, if the subject, Bob and his brother, the verb, like, and the object is running, but run is a verb. And this is what happens. If you need to put a verb inside the object or inside the subject, as I already showed you, there can only be one verb. And that's why if you need a second verb inside that clause, you use an infinitive or a gerund. So that's why we say I like running, not I like run. The verb is like. We cannot have a second verb, so we must use a gerund like this, where it's the verb ing form, and now it's like a verb pretending to be a noun. Or another example, Bob and his brother like to run. So here the object of the sentence is an infinitive, to plus verb. And again, this is another example of a verb behaving like a noun, and therefore it can be put in the object, or it can also be put in the subject of the sentence. Okay, now with the verb like, you can use an infinitive or you can use a gerund, but that's not the case with every verb. So as you're learning verbs, you need to learn which ones can be used with an infinitive, which ones can only be used with a gerund, and which one can be used with both. You need to learn each of those individually as you're learning the vocabulary. Okay, the last area of grammar I want to talk to you about is prepositions. Now, unfortunately, prepositions don't have some kind of rule that governs how they're used overall. You actually need to learn them individually. So really, if you have a problem with prepositions, you need to address this in the same way you would if you were learning vocabulary. So what I would recommend anytime you're learning vocab, make sure that you learn the collocation. Make sure you learn what preposition goes with that verb, what preposition goes with that noun. Make sure that you learn it as you're learning the vocab, and then you don't need to guess later. Because if you just learn an individual word, then you have to guess the preposition, you'll very likely guess it incorrectly. So unfortunately, prepositions is the area of grammar that takes the longest time to improve. So if you do have an issue with prepositions, make sure to start straight away. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm not trying to go into every area of grammar. I'm trying to give you an overview of the common mistakes that I see made in IELTS writing and just give you a little bit of a helping hand to overcome those. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you want one-on-one support, make sure to reach out. See you next time. Take care and bye for now.